What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And today I wanted to talk about what I think is so beautiful about presuppositional apologetics and what sets it apart from other schools of apologetics. Now, as you probably know, when it comes to apologetic methodology, presuppositional apologetics, especially as conceived of by Cornelius Van Til, is probably the most controversial. Whenever there are discussions about apologetic methodology, especially on the internet, presuppositionalism kind of has a bad rap. It is not uncommon to see Van Tilian presuppositionalism be a subject of ridicule when it comes to such discussions. Perhaps this happens because of misunderstandings and wrong preconceptions about the method. However, it is true that there is a lot of controversy surrounding the rationality and intellectual credibility of Van Til's apologetic method. However, I think that there is something about it that makes it the best defense of the Christian faith, and that is the Transcendental argument. Now, if you have seen my Transcendental argument playlist on the channel where I explain the basics of transcendental argumentation, especially in the context of Christian apologetics, if you haven't, there will be a link in the description. However, if you have seen that, you would understand that transcendental arguments in general aim to show that some principle which a skeptic denies is necessary for some other principle which the skeptic takes for granted. Now, a very good example of this is René Descartes' argument for his own existence, the so-called cogito, where he argues that the very fact that he's able to doubt his existence is proof that he exists. I think, therefore I am, right? In that case, the skeptic is doubting their own existence. However, that transcendental argument shows that in order to even doubt your existence, you must already exist. And so it takes something that the skeptic denies and shows that that thing is a precondition of something else which the skeptic takes for granted. And so when it comes to the transcendental argument for Christianity, especially how Van Til conceived of it, it aims to show that Christian belief and the Christian faith is a precondition for the intellectual and rational claims of the unbeliever. The unbeliever, the religious skeptic, the non-Christian, denies the Christian faith. So the Van Tilian wants to show that that Christian faith which he denies is a precondition for the very denial in question. And what this implies is that if it is successful, a transcendental argument will show a performative inconsistency in the skeptic. Now, if you have watched my series on transcendental argument, you would understand what performative inconsistency means. This is the ad hominem nature of transcendental argument. That is to say that they are directed to the man, which in this case is the skeptic. They show that his skepticism is only possible due to the very thing he denies. And that is the very concept of performative inconsistency. Performative inconsistency occurs when an agent's or a subject's actions contradicts their beliefs or some other truth which they have affirmed. For example, someone who says it is impossible to affirm anything. Such a statement is performatively inconsistent because the very act of claiming it contradicts itself. You cannot affirm that it is impossible to affirm anything because the very act of affirming it contradicts that statement. So in that sense, it is performatively inconsistent. Now, to apply this to the debate over the truth of Christianity, the Van Tilian transcendental argument aims to establish Christianity as transcendentally necessary. That is to say, it aims to establish Christianity as a necessary precondition of all rational and intelligible human experience, including the rationality of the unbeliever. Thus, we can apply the ad hominem nature of transcendental arguments to the unbeliever. We can point out that skepticism of Christianity is only possible if Christianity is true. And this observation leads to some interesting things. For example, take a look at this syllogism. Premise 1, If the transcendental argument for Christian theism is sound, then there are no successful arguments against Christianity. Premise 2, the transcendental argument for Christianity is sound. Premise 3, therefore, there are no successful arguments against Christianity. Now, there are two key takeaways from the above argument. First, it shows that even if the apologist does not have a rebuttal to a particular argument against Christianity, as long as he can show the soundness of his transcendental argument, he has in principle a way to reject the argument as unsuccessful. This is straightforward, right? The argument I just gave shows there are no successful arguments against Christianity if the transcendental argument for Christianity is sound. And that implies that as long as we can show the soundness of the transcendental argument, that in itself is able to refute a priori any possible argument against Christianity. It's able to show that they are unsound. And I think that that's part of the beauty of presuppositional apologetics, because the apologist just has a very simple task, which is to demonstrate the transcendental necessity of Christianity. And by doing that, he is able to achieve his apologetic goal, which is to defend Christianity against any form of rational attack. Demonstrating Christianity's transcendental necessity achieves that beautifully. The success of any argument against Christianity is predicated on the failure of the transcendental argument. So as long as the transcendental argument is successful, no argument against Christianity can be successful. And this leads us to the second takeaway, which is that the question of the soundness of the transcendental argument for Christianity is logically prior to all others within the context of the debate between the Christian and unbeliever. Therefore, the unbeliever must first show that the transcendental argument is unsound before he can launch any argument or objection against Christianity. The reasoning for this is simple. Because arguments against Christianity can only be launched if reality is intelligible, the question of what worldview secures the intelligibility of experience must first be answered before any arguments or objections for or against Christianity can be addressed. This fact allows the Van Tillen apologist to ensure that the unbeliever takes on the transcendental challenge. The unbeliever must demonstrate that he can secure the intelligibility of his experience and, by extension, the possibility of even arguing rationally while rejecting Christianity. I think Van Til's famous analogy of the little girl having to sit on her father's lap in order to be able to slap him applies here. Basically, the unbeliever has to show that he is able to stand on his own before he can even think of raising his hand against Christianity. He must demonstrate that he does not need to sit on his father's lap. And so that means that the Van Tillen can streamline the apologetic encounter towards what is most important, which is whether or not the unbeliever can actually make sense of reality apart from God. And as we know, he cannot do such a thing. This is because the transcendental argument is sound and Christianity is, in fact, transcendentally necessary. And all the Van Tillen has to do is demonstrate this to the unbeliever. And I think that this is really the beauty of presuppositional apologetics, because it makes it clear what the most important thing is. And I think this is the beauty of presuppositional apologetics, because it narrows down our focus and gets right to the heart of the matter, which is the fact that the unbeliever does not have the intellectual resources or the philosophical resources to even object to Christianity. He has no leg to stand on, and the Van Tillen transcendental argument allows the apologist to go right to that without messing around with the various quips about things like evidence or random objections which the unbeliever has no basis for in the first place. Anyways, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you're interested in finding out how to demonstrate the soundness of the transcendental argument for Christianity, consider picking up any one of my books. I'll leave links in the description. They've helped a lot of people, and perhaps you might enjoy reading one. Anyways, see you next time.